One critic's trash is another gamer's treasure. For this video, we're weighing critic scores against gamer scores. The following will be games that received below average scores from critics, while simultaneously receiving above average scores from the gamers. Here are the top 10 underrated PS4 games of 2019, arranged by play scores. The play score is an average of gamer and critic ratings. Number 10, Bus Simulator. Prepare to go around urban blocks in the professional comforts of the driver's seat. Bus Simulator provides players with an outlet for enjoying the great outdoors, indoors, while allowing for the satisfaction of collections and upgrades that enhance the driving experience. For critics, it just doesn't fit the bill of what you would call the best game. It's sparse, and compared to other games, it kind of leaves you wanting more.
What a beautiful day.
Cultured Vultures, for example, says, while the driving has depth, it felt like it should have been a side feature in a larger game about bus management. But that minimizes the impact Bus Simulator has on a niche but starved market. I mean, where else can you have an immersive experience that challenges you to take your passengers from point A to point B and give them the right change? I know it's repetitive, but in a deliberate sense that gives you the satisfaction of wages well earned. But with unhappy critics, it still comes out with a play score of 7.59.
All man's achievements in the 21st century, this is the climax!
Number 9, Metal Wolf Chaos XD. Metal Wolf Chaos was first released in 2004, and back then it was understood as an action gem satirizing America's hyper-nationalism with its absurdist humor, frantic combat, and simple controls.
Because I'm the president of the great United States of America.
And while it was panned for being too repetitive, the reception was overall positive. More than a decade later, though, it's still pretty much the same, and that's saying something. Getting a critic score of 6.54, that clearly wasn't enough, given all the clunkiness that comes with it. As GameSpot describes it, Metal Wolf Chaos is an old game with a wild reputation, and though it lives up to it in some ways, it's not good in general. But for something like Metal Wolf Chaos that made its name through its admittedly aged absurdity, the laughs, the nostalgia, the explosions make it all worth sifting through its ancient cracks. It might be hard to recommend to someone new. If you're in it for the meme, you can see exactly how it made it this far. It has a play score of 7.66. At number 8, NASCAR Heat 4. Okay, let's face it, the expectations were never that high for this latest installment of the NASCAR Heat series. But with their decent handle on marketing, we did at least get a taste of the graphical improvements that were coming in this entry. Good graphics, though, isn't the only thing that makes a racing game great. It's also important that they get the details right.
Hold your line there.
As one of the most recent and most accurate representations of the NASCAR competition, it's a little disappointing that their AI is a little frustrating and that their career mode isn't at all that different from the last. Still, what NASCAR Heat 4 has, it freely shows off. And what it has is a product that vastly improved everything from its predecessors, from a less grindy career journey to an overall better handling. No matter what the critics say, NASCAR still seems to be the best one around, and it has a play score of 7.81.
Cut off the tails with a carving knife, and into the forest at night they will go to meet their woe, to meet their woe.
7. Blair Witch. Of course, everyone remembers the Blair Witch Project. It's the found footage horror movie that changed it all. Taking place in the haunted woodlands of the iconic film, face your fears and escape every shifting forest with your loyal dog at your side. For all of its ubiquity though, for critics, the material just didn't translate well into this video game adaptation. PS Lifestyle described it as an intriguing story plagued by unsatisfactory gameplay with a few neat ideas sprinkled throughout. And that might not be the sentiment of most players, but it does point the flaws to an otherwise decent horror experience.
Okay, calm down, Alice. Everything's fine. It's all in your head.
Bogged down by bugs and wonkiness, Blair Witch is still pretty good by PS4 standards, earning it a gamer score of 8.87. With critics unsatisfied though at a measly 6.76, Blair Witch barely scrapes by with a total play score of 7.82.
I know what I saw. I know it's real.
Number 6, Erica. With the power of PlayStation's very own PlayLink, players can now immerse themselves in this unique cinematic experience, an interactive drama where every choice can make a huge difference. Full motion videos aren't new by any means, but Erica seemed to elevate it to new heights. It's wonderfully produced with an ominous soundtrack and an interactive storyline that branches out into different endings worth exploring. Erica's choices may not always be as impactful as we'd expect, and its characterization a little lacking, but it remains an impressive look into a genre making its comeback.
Erica Mason, I've waited a long time to speak to you. Did you like my gift?
Who is this?
You were so alone, holding on to your father, covered in blood.
For some reason though, it just couldn't with critics like Hardcore Gamer and French publications Gameblog and JoVideo, who'd found it redundant, limited, and shallow. Perhaps it'll get a chance in the spotlight, but for now it remains in the shadows with a play score of 7.86. Entering our top 5, we have ToeJam and Earl Back in the Groove. It's another win for fans of a cult classic video game, and in 2019 we witnessed the reunion of an iconic 90s duo, kicking back their musical platform adventures with a significantly smoother, more modern look. Fortunately, all their 90s charms survived the transition too. Unfortunately, at least for critics, so did some of their kinks. With all its inside jokes and clunkiness, there are more than a few critics that think no matter how back in the groove ToeJam and Earl are, it's just too hard to recommend. God is a Geek, for example, feels like the entire experience is stuck in the past, hampered by some basic mechanical flaws. Just like many of today's remakes, this game is faithful to a fault. But on the other hand, it's just the kind of thing that fans would want. Letting them revel in the shared nostalgia of its dazzling visuals and groovy soundtracks was just enough to pull it up to a gamer score of 9.02. All in all, it remains an underrated gem with a play score of 7.89. Our number 4 spot goes to Demon Reborn. The advent of the VR ushers new problems in the way we enjoy games, and that's particularly true for this game. From the makers of our favorite rhythm games on the mobile, Rayark takes everything we loved about their mysterious protagonist and transported it into the realm of virtual reality. Demon Reborn is a complete overhaul of the original game, forgoing the old tapping mechanics and 2D cutscenes for the mad, immersive rush that the PSVR provides. On the platform, it's an absolute lush experience packed with new gameplay elements and added voice acting that rounds up an already great game. But there's the rub. As great as it is as a VR experience, it can't be shared with players who are only on the regular DualShock controllers. Like Worth Playing says, controller fans will feel comfortable with the adventure game, but loathe the rhythm game. And with critics needing to represent the two competing sides of the control coin, the divide is almost understandable. Earning a 6.84 from critics and a 9.1 from gamers, it earns a total play score of 7.97. At our envy number 3 spot, Stranger Things 3: The Game. Come on, it's one thing to hate a game for offering subpar content for its price point, but it's another to kick a game that's basically a giveaway. This isn't Stranger Things, their first rodeo into video game tie-ins with a mobile app a few seasons ago, but they definitely ramped things up for the anticipated Season 3 return of their original series set in a whole new era. From last time's 8-bit art style, the gang returns with a little bit more pixel power. Based on such a well-loved series, critics have panned it for offering less than what the source material could offer, earning it a critic score of less than decent 6.82. Push Square felt, despite the added dimension, the gameplay and presentation were terribly flat. Given such a wider scope than a usual game giveaway, it does seem unfair to expect so much from Netflix's effort. It's not groundbreaking, but it's a tie-in that still packs the spirit of the series it was based on, and that's bite-sized sci-fi puzzle adventures. Gamers have appreciated it thus far with a score of 9.16 and a total play score of 7.99. Number 2, Annunaki. Square Enix doesn't always hit it, but this might be one of their most polarizing games of recent years. In the days leading up to its release, everyone was outpouring with joy at this JRPG that brought Chrono Trigger director Takashi Killa back in the spotlight. Aside from its production, Annunaki also drew audiences with its gorgeous visuals and a premise that divides the lands of the living and the dead. The atmosphere was pretty different at the launch though, when critics found that Annunaki just could not stick the landing. Aside from narrative flaws, critics like RPG Site said it's close to being greater than the sum of its parts, yet it falls apart in its execution. Compared to its lackluster critic score, Annunaki gets through with a whopping 9.31 gamer score. Perhaps it's the fact that it's hard to say no to a Square Enix game, but it may also be that despite its flaws, the game packs a poignant punch that is as captivating as it is aggravating. It seesaws in between quality, and for that it gets a play score of 8. And finally, the most underrated 2019 game on the PS4 is Kill la Kill If. According to IGN, Kill la Kill If completes the checklist of things you'd want in an anime video game adaptation. Beautiful cel-shaded graphics, an endorsement from the series animation studio, and of course the masterwork of Arc System Works.
Cramped offices. They punched each other across Japan and figured out how to stuff all the intensity of Honnouji Academy into a game.
But perhaps it was exactly this kind of expectation that brought it down on the critic side. Kill la Kill If is certainly far from perfect, and the rosters may be a little shallow, the side content would leave you wanting, and compared to the breakthroughs of Naruto's Ultimate Ninja, its fighting isn't exactly mind-blowing. You tell these to a fan and they would probably agree. But Kill la Kill If delivers on providing a new experience for fans of the anime, and sometimes that's really all that fans need. If there's one critic that got it right though, it's GameSpot, who said, while acknowledging its shortcomings as a fighting game, understand that it was designed especially for fans. With its gamer score of 9.3 lifting it out of the depths, Kill la Kill is our most underrated game with a play score of 8.05.